This week on Hey the Parents, we talk about report cards. We talk about grades. And of course, those moments where we go to parent-teacher conferences. How's my kid doing? Are they raising their hand? Are they talking in class? Do they participate? Well, we have lots of questions and we have lots of answers. But we talk about our experience when we were younger, mishaps with our own kids, and what the supposed experts say. Because there's the three of us and all of you. I'm Michael Haidt.
I'm Sara D.
And I'm Mike Levine.
Kids don't come with a handbook, so we need your help.
Where do babies come from?
Where do you think they come from?
Is this a kissing book?
Mama! Mama!
What?
Hi.
I learned it by watching you. There are no rules in this house. Not like a regular mom. I'm a cool mom.
We sent them to the best boarding schools. We hired the best nannies. We did everything right.
Hey, Mom! Some meatloaf!
No drinking, no drugs, no kissing, no tattoos, no piercings, no ritual animal slaughters of any kind.
Together, we can rule the galaxy's father and son.
This is Hey Other Parents, an honest, messy, imperfect show for raising kids.
Hey, welcome back. It's us again.
Hello, what's up?
Good to be back. Good to be back.
Yeah.
So, you know what?
Always
we are here together yet again, the three of us. Last week we had two, but we are back to three. And we're so glad that you came to hang out with us as we discuss this crazy parenting thing, this ride, this adventure. I'd like to take a moment to welcome our new listeners aboard the crazy train, where we try to figure out this parenting stuff together. And you know what? We may not always be right. No, that's it. All right, so we are going to jump right in. This week, I know I mentioned it last week, my son Ethan, he's my middle guy. We were playing Portal. So we got into Portal, an old game. I was torturing Mike and Sara before the show, playing a cover, a big band swing cover, I Am 8-Bit cover of the song at Portal that plays at the very end of the game. And he was committed. He's like, I'm beating this today. It's happening. So, because I left at the part. He was actually homesick. So we were hanging out together, and he was homesick. Colds going through the house. Good times. And so he beat it. He loved it. And now we're gonna go play Portal 2 together. So this is really cool. So we've been jamming out to the song from Portal. He's been into it, and now we're gonna jump into Portal 2 soon, and all that good stuff. But I have a question for you guys. So now we're at the stage of my children's lives now where I get to have my buddies on the couch watching movies with me, which is so flippin' awesome.
Yeah.
Because like there was a long time where it was like, it's like, I don't know, it was appropriate. You know, there's like all kinds of things going on with like lightsabers and people dying and, you know, stormtroopers missing their shots. So we're watching... we're doing like the rewatch. We're in the grand rewatch of Marvel, right? So we started.
Ooh, there's some dicey stuff in there, man.
There's very dicey stuff, and especially with
yes.
Iron Man. Iron Man is like, listen, that guy for the first Marvel movie when they were still trying to work it out. That guy is like the Bachelor. That guy is looking to meet the ladies, and I was like, well, this is how we're doing this, I guess, huh? So, and then forget Iron Man 1. Iron Man 2 drops in, and he's already like, you know, whatever.
Yeah.
You know, we watched like all the movies now, and now it's like Multiverse of Madness and Quantumania. So you warned me about the language in Quantumania, but I'm like, my children have now seen lots of the Marvel movies, and MODOK has some very nice things to say. So we got through that, and then now we're given the choice. Like, we're like, okay, there's the Eternals movie, and I try to keep talking my kids out of watching the Eternals movie because it's just so bad. And then now they're at the age, because I said no, now they want to say yes. So they're like, Eternals really bad. The characters don't make sense. It doesn't relate to anything. There's like 15 characters, none of them matter. Angelina Jolie's in it. I'm not sure why. Yada yada. So they're like, I want to watch it. I'm like, ugh. So we put it on, and shockingly, it was still terrible, but it wasn't as bad as I remember. So we got through that. We got to Quantumania, and now we're like in the end game now. We just finished up with Multiverse of Madness. The kids were into it. It was a little creepy, but they liked it. And now we have Black Panther, which I think you guys saw. I didn't see yet, right? The second Black Panther movie, which has got Ironheart, right? Ironheart, is that the girl that's in it? Right, the Iron Man smart engineer girl, or whatever.
Yep.
All right, I'm excited about that, and I'm excited about Shuri, the sister, right? Then we, what else is the other movie that we didn't get to? Oh, we didn't get to see I Still Love and Thunder, but there was something else. I can't remember what it was. Maybe it was just the Black Panther 2. So anyway, so that's what we're up to. I look forward to reporting back on how that whole thing goes. But without the need to keep talking about Marvel stuff, you guys at home, I have the feeling that you are probably at this moment where there are like back to school conferences, meeting with the teachers. You got the report card home. You got the standardized test. You got the report for the STAR test, the NIWA, the whatever you want to call it. And then you're looking at like 15 different printouts. And then it's like, you're a kid, got an S. And you're like, what does that mean? So we got a lot to talk about here. So without a doubt, this episode this week is all about the mixture of report cards and the parents teacher conferences, what that's all about, our experiences, our report cards when we were younger, because I'm sure we have a lot to divulge when it comes to that whole thing. Crinkle, crankle. Look at a couple of those. I'm like, oh, baby. I have a lot of judgment coming from somebody with a report card like that. So anyway, so let's jump right in. Let's take a little step back in time. Let's jump back into when we were going to grammar school and grade school and reading our look spot books and getting our report cards.
When we went into grammar school, and all we had to worry about was what was the lunch count for lunch.
Oh my gosh, a lunch count. Well, I think we're gonna have to jump to Mike Levine because he is getting us right in.
And moving your little slider card over to here, and I want the chicken nuggets, and bring it down to the main office.
Man, I'm sorry, we're already there. You got me thinking about the old days of like who got. Remember like the jobs? I think I had the job of like. Wait, I think it was it turning the lights off when you left the room?
Oh yeah,
that was a big job.
Or the messenger, or the.
Listen, could we be honest with you about the messenger? My gut tells me that they chose the messenger for the kid that annoyed them the most, and they were probably like, "I have a special message for you to bring to like such and such," and then they probably send the kid out of the room. They got to the other person. The person wrote a note like, "Oh yeah, I get it," and then they probably sent the kid back with another note, and they're like, "Okay, we got 10 minutes. This is good." The kid probably needed a break. Everybody needed a break. All good. Yeah.
Oh man.
So, Mike, did you ever get the messenger?
Many times. All right.
And I thought it was special.
It was special. They weren't annoyed about my laugh.
Oh my gosh, amazing. We love your laugh, buddy.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh man. So listen. So check this out. I have to bring this up because it's I mention this every episode. I talked to my sister, and we were laughing because she. Man, you know how it is. Like now, I was thinking about this. This is two things that came to mind. One, Sara, I was actually thinking about last week's episode when we were talking and how your daughter is kind of like the middle child.
She is.
Oh, middle child,
right? Like I always think of Sophia as like the older one, but in actuality, because of Brianna, she's in the middle
because she does PowerPoint presentations on awesomeness.
Yes, the PowerPoint. So technically,
no, Sunisha.
If you've read the book Birth Order or something like that, technically she is the first, not the middle, because if it's like something like 10 years plus, you start all over the cycle. So like anyone born after 10, supposedly, even though she is the middle, but she's the first. So. Yeah.
Wow, but she's got the sass still, so
she has sass. Yeah, so she's somewhere like I don't know. She's like a hybrid.
All right, I respect that.
Well, I like
but I was thinking about that because I'm like trying to like because you were talking about it, I was trying to like relate, and I'm thinking about Ethan, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of similarities to like some of the way that they interact with their siblings, and that could just be a personality thing. But I was thinking like, oh, in a way, it's kind of like she's somewhere sandwiched in the middle, but you know what I mean?
Yes, and then there are times that she reminds me of Jacob, so I'm like, like she's a hybrid, I think.
She's a hybrid. But speaking of the older one, my sister, okay, so check this out. So speaking of the older one, so the older one is usually the one that like goes out there, radio silent, it's getting no tips. They're just out there doing their thing, hoping for the best, hoping they don't get yelled at. My sister, she didn't do so well in high school. Let's just say that. And when the report cards came, I often would see her rip them in half in the mail. They come in the mail. She ripped them in half and throw them in the garbage. And then she would tell my parents, nope, they never came. Now, like a storm a brewing, that was usually rectified by the fact that report cards eventually have to be sent in some way, or my parents would call the school. But somehow she was gutsy, man. She would just like throw them out.
Yo, I give your sister some here's a clap
She's got some oomph.
For having some oomph, man, because I was scared. When my report card was going to be coming in, even though, like, I was a good kid, like, I think I did the right stuff most of the time, right? So when the report card
if you would have gotten the attendance award, I would have said that, but, you know.
Exactly. I wanted that attendance award. I just wanted, I was a people pleaser. I was a good guy, good little man. And, but I was still nervous about my report card coming in just because you never knew what the teacher was going to say or what your grades were going to be, even though you may have an idea like you did good, but like what it was that S that was always marked on our report cards, or
I feel like
something like that. Like, what is that?
Do you remember? Like, did you get it before your parents did? Like, did it go home with you like in an envelope, or did it come in the mail? I don't remember. I think I don't remember like the moment of like quickly going down the line. Like, and looking like, S, that's good. S, that's fine. That's fine. S, that's good. Okay, fine. Needs improvement. Oh, no, so whatever. Mostly S, this is good.
E for effort.
E was a jam, man.
Yeah.
No, E was excellent.
E was excellent.
E was excellent. S was satisfactory. I was improvement. Back in the day. Do you remember that?
There it is. There it is.
There's no
Sarah,
Sarah got the VGs,
I remember.
right?
Coming out of there and just pulling it out.
Yeah. So at St. William's Abbey in Seaford, they did like E, VG, G, S, and something else. And I remember like I went from one school, Grace Day in Massapequa, to St. William's. They went from like E's, S's, I's, whatever the heck it was, to like VG's. And I remember bawling my eyes out because I was like, I got a VG. Like, I was like, that's got to be bad. That's the end of the alphabet. Like,
Oh my gosh.
And she's like, why are you crying?
I could have got an X or a Y or a Z, but it wasn't even. It's just so bad.
She's like, it was a VG. I was like, oh, my bad. I'm like, all right, cool. I still don't know what that meant, but like, I was like, all right, like,
very good.
That's like when you see like commended for effort. They like commended for effort. Like, oh my god, I'm in trouble.
Yes. Yeah. I was like, dang. I respect your sister though there because she was delaying the inevitable. She could get her. It was
coming. It didn't matter.
She got her story right. She could be like, listen, that teacher mean, Mr. Smith over there.
Yeah. Meanwhile, like, what are you gonna buy yourself? Like a day and a half, like a weekend, maybe.
Yeah, maybe like a quick hangout of Baskin Robbins or something.
One more day of your parents not knowing it. I understand your sister. Too. She was like, one more day of them not knowing the bad grades.
She's like
I admire her.
Like one more day.
I admire her. My brother was like that. He would just like hide his stuff.
Hero.
I know.
He's like. So Anthony and my sister are like just hanging out, like just like Duncan, and like the rest of us are like, I have to study now.
Yeah, the rest of us. Actually, no, I never really studied when I was younger. To be honest with you, up until
that's a problem, right? Because later on you have to figure it all out, right?
Wait,
no, I don't know. Like, not saying that I'm like, not tooting my own horn, but there are times I walked into college and I'm like, why is everyone so nervous? Like, there's a final. I'm like, today? I'm like, today's the final? I'm like, oh. I'm like, all right, we're going to see how this goes. All right. And I have to say, I graduated summa cum laude. So,
yeah.
Well done. I'm impressed.
Never open a book.
Listen, let me tell you, anybody that knows how to rock some grammar, we know that something's going on behind the scenes. So they have some understanding. So did you guys have a chance to look at like your old report cards before the episode, or like have you looked at them recently?
Oh, I sure did.
Because we were laughing about this before the show, and like this may come as a shock to you. A lot of my report cards from when I was really young said like distracted in class, talking to his neighbors. Smart, but misdirected, apparently.
Yeah.
Oh, misdirected. Okay. All right.
But the thing is, we'll put the blame on myself because I probably deserved it. Now that we got that out of the way. So I had this teacher in kindergarten, and everything starts out so nicely. She was a retired nun, and she was really tough, man. And not only was she tough, she didn't really particularly care for the boys. She liked the good behaved non-speaking girls.
Yes.
So like
the angels.
I did not have a good experience with this fine lady. And then I had the pleasure of having her twice. So that I didn't get left back, but she moved to 4th grade. So I was like, I have her again. I'm like, you got to be kidding me right now. How is this possible? And of course, it's the year that Super Mario Bros. 3 comes out. So I'm jazzed about that, talking to people and like, how that went. Yeah, it didn't go well. So
isn't it amazing though? Like how you always, you can think back and you could always remember a teacher, whether they made an impact in a positive or negative way. They made an impact. You could always remember a certain teacher. Like I remember my third grade teacher, Miss Cotter, and I don't know what it was about her. She was just so nice. She was cool. She understood me, and we did like these energizing robotic Lego kit things in her classroom. She was like super cool, and I just remember like, I was never scared about getting my report card from her just because like that was that teacher that made that impact, in that positive way,
That's awesome. Let's get back to the negative. No, I'm kidding.
That's so sweet.
No, that's beautiful though, because like truthfully, as I was going through this, which is kind of funny, is I did come to the realization that like as I was like thinking through every grade that I could possibly remember, was like I did really well with like the teachers that were really encouraging, and not like strict. And it's funny because like now that you're, as a parent, you're kind of like, oh, maybe strict is good. But like the ones that like were really encouraging and like calm, there was this one teacher had Mr. Noodleman who was like really like on the verge of retirement. And like, the kind of teacher that would like really be really well dressed, like, like the elbow patches and then like the shirt and tie and the whole thing. And he was like, my parents thought like, my mom's a teacher, but she was like, this guy seems like kind of like, a little dull, whatever else. But like, she wouldn't like say that, but you got the impression I could tell from her. Yeah. But I loved him. And I remember she'd be like, you sure this is the guy? You sure this is the guy? And I remember, like, I wanted my mom to meet him at like graduation, and I was like, he's the best. I love Mr. New. He's the best. He was just so calm, and like my mom then reminded me that I freaking loved. What's his name? Not Daniel Tiger. Who is the Daniel Tiger's arm? Who's Daniel Tiger attached to?
Mr. Rogers.
Mr. Rogers. No? That's a weird statement. Yeah. Who's Daniel Tiger's attached to? Yes, Mr. Rogers. Because right? Mr. Rogers would like roll up. Yeah, no, you're right. Mr. Rogers would roll into the scene and he would be all calm and he would be like, I'm going to change my slippers now and flip off my jacket and, hey, King Friday, what's doing? So like that kind of like calm teacher energy, I really did well with that. And I feel like, and I don't know. It also, I don't know if it's like the kind of thing where like, as a boy, having like your first male teacher is kind of exciting, I guess, because you don't often see that when you're younger. But it was like really sweet. I really liked the guy. And then there was another teacher I had, this guy, Mr. Scotty. And I immediately was very proud of myself. He asked the class, what kind of dog do you think Mr. Scotty has? And I'm like, a Scotty dog. And he's like, that's absolutely right. I'm like, yeah. Like, puns. I'm like, let's do this. You can tell my parents are goofy. So, really cool guy. And he gave out something called the Good Citizenship Award, which I love this. So at the end of the week, like he would pull like 2 tickets, right? So he would have like a group of tickets of like kids that tried hard and like did well in school and like yada, yada. I'm like more in the other category. And then if you were like nice to your neighbors, like a good helper, you like, I don't know, you picked up someone's bed, whatever, then you could get a good citizenship award. And this dude, let me tell you a little story. He didn't have the small candy bars. He didn't have the Hershey's pack of mixed variety. He had the full size, movie theater size candy bars.
Oh man.
And when I rolled on the bus with my Mr. Good Bar full size, I was like, I am proud of this moment.
I am a good citizenship.
And it's funny too because like I think they still do that. I think they still do those things because even in my kids' school, now like they're always trying to win the kindest heart award, which I think is great. Because they
like if you're really close to that award, you're like, your heart's a little bit less kind.
Oh man, you like the Grinch, like your little heart's small and it grows bigger.
Can you just tell me how far off was I from the kindest award? Could you just give my heart a rating scale like between Grinch to Mother Teresa? I don't know.
I love that. That's a great scale. No, I think that's
kind
so
of sweet.
That is so sweet. I mean, like, listen, I think that's the thing. Like, I don't know. I always enjoyed all my teachers. I can think of every single teacher. They always made some sort of impact, whether it was, Miss Peltzer, who passed gas in class, and I definitely told everyone because I was right behind her when she did that. And I was like, she just farted, everyone. I'm like, just.
I don't think you know what the word positive means. You keep saying positive.
I was a big mouth. Let me tell you. I was a big mouth, and I had to work on sharing. That was like my big thing. Like, so in pre-K, there was like that. Do you remember like those water games where there was a little clown?
Oh yeah, the ring and the button and like it would shoot the air bubble up.
Yes,
and it would.
And you had to get the ring on. I used to hide that game behind like something else in a cubby, and I always dominated that game. And the teacher caught me one time, and I remember my mom, my dad having to sit down with me and be like, "You have to share." And I was like, "But why? Like that game's awesome. Just either get me the game so I can have it at home, or first come first serve in preschool, man.
Oh man,
I don't know." But
you have to remind me later about when we get to that part about our kids. Please remind me of the red cars.
The red cars. Oh, okay.
Yeah, later.
See,
okay.
Am I the only person that like didn't really get in trouble when they were younger?
No, I didn't. You know what? I honestly didn't really get in trouble.
Can I just get a litmus test on your heart? I'm gonna see if that's
It's Grinchy. No, I didn't really get in trouble. I was a good kid. Like my parents, they like I said in the last episode, I was like my parents never had to worry about me. Like so that was good and that was bad in some ways. Like they didn't have to worry about me. My grades were always fine. I always got the E's and the S's. I for sharing, because I need some improvement there. Because I didn't like to share my glitter crayons. I didn't, or sometimes I get hard on myself. That was another thing I had to work on. Was like my self-esteem or something like that, which is also very true still now. I have to work on all these things because I do not like it when you take my food off my plate and you don't ask about it. Yeah. I don't like to share. Gene knows about that.
I agree with that.
Gene knows that. He knows I'm stingy with my food. So, but
I respect that. Walk away with a nub. Get away.
Yeah, get away.
Food.
Now, my food. If you wanted this, you should have ordered it. But anyhow,
I like that.
But I think all my teachers were I was really lucky. I feel like I had amazing teachers. There's probably two teachers that probably stand out in my life that I could really think of. Was my math teacher in high school. She was so mean. I was crying. I think I was junior year, still crying, taking tests with her. She was so mean. And then there was my kindergarten teacher, which you think kindergarten, they should be nice. She was equally as mean too, I have to say. She was so mean. And, the tragic thing about her was that, and maybe because it was like the 80s, the 90s at that time, again, being adopted. My mom is from Ecuador, though, and my dad's Italian. So my mom would speak to us in Spanish, and we were learning Spanish and English when we were little. And the kindergarten teacher told her to stop speaking Spanish to us because she was reading our English. And then my brother and I were also put right away into speech because apparently we couldn't talk. So... So I did
saying these wrong words that sound like another language.
I know. So
let's get you in speech right. Let's Americanize you as fast as possible.
Thank goodness things have progressed more than from back in those times. But but I did have speech impediment because I do remember going so Miss Quinto definitely recommended me some speech, but he's like I also didn't understand what the heck you were saying half the time, so he was like you needed some speech too, and I was like oh thanks Dad.
The half the time you did understand. How was that?
It was so my brother was in there for just teeny bit because he probably really didn't need it other than just his Spanglish was probably bad. And then me, I needed I had some Spanglish, and then I probably had some pronunciation issues or whatever. I remember working on actually King Kong was keeps a kitten in a kennel. That was one of the the tongue twisters I had to learn.
That's amazing.
And just to let you guys all know is that before we do our podcast, we work on a little voice activities to loosen our voices and get all ready to podcast. And one of them says is King Kong, and I laugh each time because I always think about my speech teacher.
Am I bringing you back in a good way, or am I making you
No, in a good way. I used to love speech. Speech was fun, man. I didn't know what the heck she was talking about half the time, but I had a good time there.
That's a very effective speech teacher.
Because she was talking about tongue placements and making sounds, and I was like, what? I was like, I don't know, whatever.
Let's do the King Kong thing.
But I liked her. King Kong.
Ding dong, bing bong.
Bing bong.
So there's check this out. So I was in this in music. I had this this teacher, and I'm trying as you were talking, I was looking behind me trying to find my recorders. Don't ask. And I had this music teacher, and for some reason I wanted to rock the recorder. And she was this awesome lady, She was this elderly African American woman. She was just awesome. I loved her. She had like a great she just took no nonsense from anybody in the class. But like if you tried hard, she would like pull you aside. She'd be like, you know what? I want you to join the recorder group. I'm like, the recorder group? For real?
Man.
Like I could do that? I'm in. I'm young. Can we do this? So I joined the recorder group and I loved it. And she was awesome. And it felt like, at the time, it felt like a pretty big deal. You know, I went from hot cross buns to recorder rock. Like, hold on.
Oh, man.
So then, you know.
You're going on tour in a second.
Yeah, I mean, hold tight. So, like, my pan flute. Like, so I did this. And I don't know if it was, like, because I was competitive with my sister. Because, like, she was learning, like, the clarinet. And I wanted to be like, I'll show you the clarinet. Give me the recorder. And it was awesome. And it was so funny because I loved her so much. But she couldn't pronounce my last name. So my last name is Haidt, 4 letters. She called it Hyatt. She called me Hyatt. She called me it was like every other, and I loved her so much. I didn't have the heart to tell her it was wrong. I'm like, yes, that's right.
You're like, whatever it is.
I don't care. You're the best.
I want to be in the recorder group so badly, please.
I just want to stay in this club. Oh my God, it's hysterical.
Oh, that's
Recorder
adorable.
club. It's funny because now, like, you know, kids bring the recorders home. You're like, oh God, here we go.
Yes.
But during COVID, it was great because they brought the recorders home and they weren't allowed to play them in class, so they actually played the pencil. They didn't blow into them, so my kids sounded great.
That's hysterical.
It's so funny because
you know what I want to know? Were you able, like, when your parents did like the report card and they went to parent-teacher conferences, would they go and see the special area teachers, you know, as well?
I don't
like
think so.
music, art, and all those other things.
I think like I'm sure like if you made a big deal out of it, they'd probably try to like talk to the person. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think it was as common as now where it's so organized. You go in there like, okay, from the 8 to 8:15, you get to speak to all the specials and yada, yada, you know. Yeah. What do you think? Do you remember that?
I'm not sure.
What do you?
And that's the thing. And that's why I bring it up, because when you were talking about the recorder, it reminded me, I'm like, wow, you know, I don't think my parents ever went to like my special area teachers, and I wish that like they had gone to like my art teacher, because I remember my art teacher from elementary school, Mr. Graves, and I drew like these awesome animals. Like I drew legit dinosaurs and bald eagles and a T-Rex.
Wait a minute. Hold on a second. I'm sorry to interrupt.
All right, Bob Ross.
Wait. Hold on, my friend. And I love that you're an artist. I had nothing wrong with that at all. But it's just that the first thing you said was a dinosaur.
Yeah, I was really into dinosaurs. I see where my son gets it. I was really into
I was just gonna say,
Jurassic
I think it's
Park
in the blood.
came out around that
it's
time.
in the cold blood. It's
Yeah.
no kidding.
Ah, yes.
So I was like, I was really into drawing the T-Rex face, and I guess I just drew it so many times that it was very detailed, that the little hands and everything. I loved it. And you know, I remember being in an art, sitting there, Mr. Graves came up behind me and goes, wow, that's a really good T-Rex. And it just made me feel like $1,000,000. Like I was the best artist in the world.
Man.
And, you know, I remember when I was younger too, I would just draw in my room, and I'd go upstairs to my mom when she was in the kitchen talking to either my grandmother or my aunt or whoever. And I'd show her, oh, Mom, look at this drawing. Look at this drawing. Cause I was just so excited. And I think, you know, Mr. Graves, that art teacher, had a part in making me excited about my art. You know, and I don't think they ever saw or went to those special area teachers when we had the report cards. So
that's wild. You're right. I think it matters more now.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. So that's
but
why
that's amazing.
say,
like that little bit of encouragement, like made such a difference for you.
Yeah, and that's why I say, like, you know, I guess to our listeners, you know, take a crack at those special area teachers. You never know. You may find something surprising in there about your child. You know. No
offense to that math, science, socialized English, but there's other things out there, right?
Yeah, exactly.
When I was going to school, I had some friends that ended up like in, what was it called? Like Horizons or Enrichment or Advanced or like whatever. And I was like, oh man, they're leaving to go to this special class and I'm not.
Yeah.
So I remember talking to my mom and I was like, I want to try to get into that. And they tested me and it was like, no bueno.
Aww.
So it was, I think that like cracked my confidence for a while, because it was like, you see all like your friends going off and they were like, we're going to the school in a school. See you. And it was like, you know, oh,
we're
all
going
right,
to the
I'm
school
just gonna...
of magical arts.
See, that's why the speech was where I was at, because it was like you got pulled out. I was like,
you were special, right?
Right. I was like, oh, hey guys, I'm gonna like practice some tongue twisters. Like, all right.
You're like, peace. I just got an
Peace
adult just pick me
out.
up.
Right.
You guys all enjoy your stuff.
Study math, because it seemed like they pulled me out of math. a lot. Maybe that's the start of my.
I was gonna say fractions affect only 4 out of 3 people. Yeah, no, I hear you.
As long as I say 4 properly, and fourth.
Right.
But who has to do fractions?
That reminds me, because when I was younger, I was pulled out too, and they put me in resource room. And I think at a point when I was younger, I lived in Puerto Rico for a year, I think it was, and they said like it kind of messed with my learning of just living there and kind of like trying to learn the language and figure things out. So, or so I was told, or I had to do something with that.
Oh man!
What are we going to name this episode? The American Dream?
Oh,
what is going on right now?
Here's the thing: like that really speaks to the time that we grew up in. Being an other of some sort was like a negative, and like that showed up in your report card. That kind of showed up elsewhere.
Yeah.
And that's obviously like a deeper conversation. But like, I think that's being acknowledged in some ways. Like, definitely like just because my mom spoke Spanish at home to us didn't mean that I couldn't understand what the heck was going on in class, or because Levine over there was in Puerto Rico getting his tan on. That he couldn't
remember. Listen, they just put me to sleep over there.
Oh man. Like, go sueño.
The little boy going to sleep.
I'm like, you're okay, baby. Don't worry, it's all right.
You're okay.
I know we're ready to like stand up. We're ready to like stand up for you, and you're like, no, I didn't really learn. I just took naps.
I did learn over there. I thought so.
Yeah, I thought you learned some things. But it definitely was. It was a weird time, the 80s and 90s, education wise. So.
Totally. Especially like the teachers that were like just like tough, and they were like been there a while, like you didn't like they just were there. I remember I had this one teacher that was oh man, she was wild. She was like, I think I was running for what was I doing? I was trying to run for vice principal. Good Lord, vice president. I'm not trying to become a principal when I was young. And she was like so grouchy. Remember, she sat at her desk, was eating bananas and like leaving them on her desk. And she was like, she just like, I didn't like anybody talking. And as you can imagine, I probably talked a lot in class. And she was like, she threatened me, and she's like, if I have to talk to you one more time, I'm going to campaign against you. Could you imagine if a teacher said that to you now?
Yeah.
Like, that is like out of control, right? Oh my God.
Bad news bears, man.
Right?
Yeah.
Oh man. Because my mom worked in the district, and she was like, the first words out of her mouth every year we go to school to my sister and I is, don't embarrass me. Oh. Those are the words.
Oh, so your mom actually worked in your district?
Yeah. So my mom, they were like 3 elementary schools.
Yeah.
I think 3 or 4, maybe it was 4, 3, whatever, doesn't matter. So she didn't work in the elementary school that I went to. She worked in a different one. So like, it wasn't like the kids that went to her school were going to be living near us because it was a different elementary school. But all of those kids got funneled into the middle school and then the high school. So, which was kind of cool. At like one point when I was like in 4th grade, we became pen pals with my mom's class. Aww. So we like wrote letters to each other and then went on like a trip. So it was cool. But no, don't embarrass me. Were those were the words,
I would say the same thing to her if I was Mama Height. Let me tell you,
right? Don't embarrass me.
Yeah, but I think that's what like I don't know. I kind of I get what your mom was doing, because I kind of give my kids that same kind of.
Talk where you tell your children it's better to be seen than heard. What do you tell them?
Yeah, I just kind of.
I'm kidding. I know you don't say that.
But maybe.
No, I kind of just like make them know, like, hey, you like be a good person. Just be a good person, do the right thing, try hard, and don't let me hear that the teacher's saying you're hitting kids or talking in class when you're supposed to be listening or stuff like that,
Yeah, absolutely.
And if I was to measure your heart compared to other hearts.
Yeah. Like, where's your heart on the Richter scale of hearts? Like
Grinch, too.
Mother Teresa. I think forever that will be the scale, I think. But for me, like, when I go to my kids' like teachers conference, I'm always like, hey, any surprises? Like, do I need to know something?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
You're mean to someone. You're hiding an F somewhere. Even though I feel like Jeannie and I are pretty much on top of our kids. The portal, the grades. I work with my daughter and my son pretty much every day, like homework, if they need some help with something. With my daughter, I do check her Google Classroom every once in a while just to make sure like she's really like, I'm like, yo, you got that like essay or there's a rewrite. Did you do it? So I think I feel like I keep pretty much on tabs on my kids. Not too much. I don't think so, but I always ask them, no surprises, right? Like, is any, like, I'd rather know now that you did this, you did that before I get in there, So at least I could be like, I apologize. I heard about this, and luckily my kids are good, like, in terms of behavior. But like, again, like my biggest thing is that I'm waiting to hear about their citizenship. Like, are you being a good human in class? Are you being respectful to the teacher? Are you even like slightly interested? Like, even if you're bored to death, do you look like you're kind of interested, and
play the part.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there are times like my daughter comes in, she's like, oh my God, that class is so bad. It's boring. I go to teacher conferences and I'm thinking the worst. I'm like, oh my gosh, she's gonna be eye rolling, she's gonna be sleeping, and like, oh no, she's great, she does this. And I'm like, oh thank God, she just hates her in her head. That's good. Okay, great. Like I'd rather that and her vent to me than like her actually showing that teacher that.
Don't you feel like sometimes it's like a fake vent? Like they really don't have a problem, but they just kind of want to like give this persona off that like, they just can't be bothered. But like, yeah, it's like, or you think it really is legitimately like, she's like, no, I really don't like this person. Or it's like,
you're right. Like there are times I think it's just like to complain. Cause I can think about some teachers, like my third grade teacher, I could think of making fun of her name and kind of like complaining about her, but she really wasn't that bad. I really didn't mind her, but I remember complaining about her. And then like my son too, like his teacher right now, he loves her one day and then like has all the worst things to say about her another day. So I think sometimes like we just complain to kind of complain to kind of get off our
like
chest.
You're not being consistent at all.
Yeah. Like, but overall, like their scale is probably like an 80 versus like,
But
50,
I think
50,
that's part of the process because like Lucas is my son currently in 4th grade. And he's having a hard time with 4th grade in the sense that they're not babying him anymore in 4th grade. You know what I mean? Yep. So he's kind of moving from, hey, I am not being coddled and catered to from 1st and 2nd grade, kindergarten, even a little bit in 3rd grade. But now like, oh man, here's a 4th grade teacher who's really challenging me. And when I think that kids are internalizing that, they're just, especially your own kids, like they've never encountered those things before and they're trying to figure it out. So like you said, they're sometimes complaining about it and they're right about it, but sometimes they're just like, it's like, are you really complaining about it? Cause like Lucas right now, the other day he was telling us like his teacher is really tough and whatever. But then the next day he tells us, well, she's kind of growing on me because she's actually kind of so I think it's just them trying to work it out and figure it out and handle these kind of people that come into their life that they have to work with and figure out,
I think I agree with that. Yeah. I can think of my son right now who's complaining about his 5th grade teacher. He was upset with her over something with the homework and everything like that. But I see what she's coming from. Like she's trying to teach him responsibility and he's thinking, oh my God, she's being so tough and a big meanie.
Right.
So, but there have been unfortunately sometimes where with my daughter, I've experienced where I'm like, oh, that doesn't sit right with me. Like my gut saying that wasn't that was a bad moment for that teacher in that moment, and like that might have to be addressed or something like that. But that's far few in between, thankfully, because we love our teachers and respect them, but, and they're human. We're human, but all of us.
And I think that's where the challenge comes, I think, as a parent, because you're trying to figure out how far do I push my child, right? Like, are you really having a tough time with this and you're really struggling because, the work is hard, or you just, you've been babied too long and you need to be pushed and grown to be a little bit more responsible. You know what I mean? And it's hard because you're at that point. In Lucas's case, he's at this point where it's like, oh my God, am I pushing him too much? Am I not being more considerate to his feelings and how he's handling the 4th grade, or whatever it is, or am I doing the right thing? And, Taylor, my wife and I, we've had numerous conversations on this, when the kids are sleeping or when they're not around. And, we kind of just analyze his day to day and how he comes home how he's reacting, how, you know, what his grades are like. And we kind of put all those pieces together, and we say, I think we're doing the right thing by pushing him, you know, or maybe we should step back this time and say, hey, you know what, why don't you take a mental health day from school, you know? And you just got to work with, you know, I don't want to say either your partner or yourself, and just, you know, kind of analyze and look at all the pieces and know that, you know, you're doing the best you can with the information you have.
Exactly.
This is going to sound really not like me at all, because I'm going to make a sports reference, which is
Here you
I'm
go.
sweating thinking about it.
Let's see he gets it right. Okay.
All right, so this is going to be an odd one. So, oh God, I'm sweating. Put me in, coach. So, my wife listens to podcasts sometimes, and she listens to Smartless. So, like, you know, it's a great podcast. It's you know, people have heard of Smartless, whatever.
Yeah.
Justin Bateman, Will Arnett. You know, anyway, so they had Stephen Curry on, and she played this snippet from it, and I'm like, Stephen Curry, who's this guy? Is he like a chef? Is he no? Anyway, I knew he was. So so he was talking. It was an interesting part of it, and I kind of relates to what we're talking about, because they were saying, like, you know, for somebody who has so many wins and like a professional that's like always in the news of, like, you know, just doing so well, like, how do you prep yourself for the next season, or like how do you control, like, even as a coach or like whatever else, like how do you get like ready when you just come off of a win, like how do you start practice again for the next season? And it was interesting. So he said that there were two things. One is like it was like, you know, just trying to win the week instead of like thinking about the whole season. It was like just treating the week as like 1 week at a time, like whatever games were happening that week or whatever like practice was happening that week, and just trying to bite off a smaller piece of it than thinking of this grandiose plan of like what was going to happen for the whole season, you know? And then you were talking about like contract stuff, and you're saying, oh, look at like 2 years. It's like, what do we now affecting the next year? Because they were just talking about like, you know, when it's time to retire and all that stuff. I'm like, he's like 30 something. I'm like, why are we even talking about this? But I think it was just interesting to think about that, gauging it in that smaller spectrum, because like sometimes as a parent, I feel like we get so carried away with thinking of like, what does it all mean? What's the grandiose plan? Like, how is this going to affect their, like, you know, their graduate school when they're in second grade? No, but the thing is like, you have to just treating it as like, you know, a smaller little moment of time where you could be like, okay, so how's the spelling test going to go on Wednesday? How is, like, you know, we're going to have to study on Thursday because you got like, you know, religion or cello, whatever else. So like just treating that small little tidbit of time, I just thought it was interesting. And I'll never make another sports reference again. But that was, you know, that was pretty
that was well done. I'm
was
impressed. But like, how do you guys take, like, when you sit down in front of the teacher on a very small chair and you're trying to like not like fall off of it?
That is the funniest thing.
That is the funniest
like
thing.
Giant.
Yes, even me being 5 feet of fury, you know, like when I sit on these chairs, I do feel quite large in there. How do you feel like when you take, like, when you hear some sort of negative feedback? I don't mean like the most egregious thing. I'm talking about, like, you know, like maybe doesn't raise their hand enough, or maybe too too talkative, or passing notes in class or something like that. Like, how do you guys feel when you hear that stuff?
I don't know. It's hard because, like, I feel like it's, I don't know, it's just this thing about me, just like growing up. I don't know. I feel this incessant need to make somebody I'm with feel comfortable in the situation. So I'll usually like crack a joke or do something self-deprecating, you know, and like, you know, and I'm like, I think that sometimes when you're sitting there, there is negative stuff, right? Like they do sometimes talk about the good and the bad, but like, I think I try to first fire from the hip and think of something that might be negative or something funny that happens and be like, you know, we never sit still, whatever. Like, and then that's like a good conversation into like the stuff. But ultimately, like, it, as a parent, it is hard, man. It's hard hearing anything negative, but you're like, separate yourself from your child in this moment because you have to, because this is like,
and I think that's your first
I feel like
reaction.
It's appreciated. It is, but I think it's somewhat appreciated to hear the negative because, like, I think, like, as I've gotten older, I feel like I appreciate a straight shooter. Like, don't get me wrong. If it's completely misguided and I feel like it's completely off and I'm not getting it and I'm like not liking it, then I'm going to be kind of wary of the situation. But I feel like as a parent, and if I respect the teacher, which I oftentimes do because I love the kids' teachers, I feel like I want to hear the negative too, because I feel like if I'm only hearing positive, then I'm like, what's the point of this? Like, we didn't come here just to have like, you know, like a, you know, a flower party. Is that, what am I saying? But I feel like there's something about like the negative that I'm like, initially I just get like that pit in my stomach, but then I'm like, all right, let's just take this for what it is. there probably is some honesty here. I appreciate them telling me because in their situations, it's probably a little bit uncomfortable to have to tell a parent about their kid, And I think I value it more from, and don't get me wrong, I'm sure there's a lot of young teachers that my kids have had that I think are wonderful. But I think like there's something nice about when a teacher has kids too. Like it seems like it softens them a little bit. And I think like you really could get you get a good appreciation for what they're telling you. And I feel like you kind of holds a little bit more weight, because you're like, all right, they've been there, they get it, all right, tell me what's going on. Does my kid need to stop talking? Does he kid need to practice his spelling a little more? What's the good word?
Yep.
Sarah, how do you feel about that?
Like sometimes like it's hard because depending on what it is like I want to get my hackles up. I want to be like, no, he or she is always like that or something like that. And other times like, like I know, but then I have to like calm down and be like, okay, they're not perfect. They're perfect in my eyes. But, and again, to say, yes, they're seeing this child in a very different setting than I see my child, and it is sometimes like, like I don't want to justify any bad behavior or maybe laziness in work and something like that. Mm-hmm. So like you have to like all these things are running through your mind. I don't know about you guys. Like you're thinking, okay, how did I fed my child? Nope, can't do that. How to make excuses? I probably shouldn't do that either. So then you do like not overreact, and then you're like, okay, so then you do explain further. What do you mean by that? Or what exactly are you seeing? Like give me an example. And I think that's like the nice way of being like, okay, like I don't like to hear this, but give me. Right, I need more information because again, I don't think that as a parent, you go into a parent-teacher conference expecting like a fist fight or anything like that, but like you're right. Like you don't necessarily want to hear all the rainbows and butterflies shooting out of everywhere, mm-hmm. but like
that's a better description. That was like a flower party. What's a flower party?
Yeah, but I do want to hear some real things about her, and if you really know your kid, you kind of know. Like you're like, all right, yeah, this sounds like her. She could be a little sassy, or he does get frustrated easily. I get it,
Well, there's like this thing that I noticed. Did you guys have this like in your household where like my mom did when we were growing up, where she would say like, I think she wouldn't tell us this when we were younger. She talked to me like when I got older. We talked about this, and she said with you guys, like I was very fortunate for the most part. For the most part, is always interesting. Where she would say like, I knew that like even if you got in trouble at the house, like I always knew you were good. Like when you would go on a play date or like you would go to school, like I always got good reports in that way. And I always prefer that if you're gonna like get in trouble or act that, I'd rather you do that at the house. Yep. And be on your best behavior at school than the other way around. And I feel that's kind of with our kids too. Yeah, I feel like this. I have to say, like my kids are, they're well behaved in class for the most part. They come home, they might cretch about something, but like they're holding it together well in class in terms of like attitudes and behavior. I've gotten things, it is a little frustrating sometimes to hear like, hey, they could have like redone something or they could have got extra credit for something, and like, oh, they didn't take advantage of it. And then you're going through the weekend. Well, they definitely did play a lot of Roblox, or they definitely hung out with their friends for 5 hours. They could have. They get so many cosmetic items in Roblox.
Right.
Yeah.
They totally could have squeezed in that extra credit, or they could have so like sometimes, as a parent, it is hard to hear like, oh, they left extra points on the table, and you want to, because you also want a good citizen, but you also want like work ethic. I feel like, me personally, I don't necessarily need like the 90s. Those are wonderful and those are beautiful. I think like 80, 85 is like our kind of like our goal in our house. But again, it's also to the things that like with effort though, like, are you putting forth effort? And so when I hear from a teacher, okay, so behavior is probably like top on my list, and then effort's like second, like
I agree with you 100%.
So like, are they putting effort? Are they like asking questions? Are they doing the extra help? Are they taking advantage of extra credits or rewrites or whatever? And if they're not, it's like, dude, like what? Like that's all you gotta do. Like you don't have chores in this house. Come on, And then after that, it's like then it's like okay, like because it is what it is with the kids. Like you know your child the best. Like are they more artsy? Are they more mathematical? Are they more whatever? Like so. you know, I just
it's so funny because I think you bring up so many good points. Like when I go to these conferences, like, you know, like you always have these parents. It's like it makes you want to like throw up. It's like on Facebook, they're like, "Oh, my child just did," you know, whatever. Like it's about the grades. It's about like how geniuses they are. They gifted and they're like 7 years from Sunday. They're like they should be at 15th grade,
right?
But the thing is like I mean, like we don't really talk about like our kids like grades like that because like it's personal, or whatever. But the thing that I think like it's funny because we sit down to a parent teacher conference, and my wife and I are like, "All right, what's the plan? Like, what do we want to ask here?" And it's always like the same thing, which is very funny because like even if like Jacob does really well, which he does, like we don't. That's not what we're like. We know that already because we looked at his report card. We're like, that's not what we're there for, you know.
Yeah.
Like we want to know is he being respectful?
Yep.
Is he working to his ability?
Yep.
Is he socializing? Is he raising his hand to answer questions? Like those to me are like important developmental skills that's going to help him be a good human being and like, you know, grow into an adult and like be able to like hold his own and be able to like ask for things when he needs them and not just get frustrated when he gets home and didn't like do anything about it, you know, because their brains aren't that developed yet. So like, it seems like communication is key because there's no way that like a kid is always going to be using their right mind when they're like, well, you know, I could do corrections and get 5 more points, or I could play Roblox, you know, but it's just like, you know, that's like as an adult, you're like, dude, seriously, like this is important now. Get this done. But, you know, those things are important.
I think like when parents go into these conferences, you're worried that there's something maybe that you haven't seen at home, or they haven't shown you, or some side of them that is a mystery and you're going to find out about it at this parent-teacher conference. So then when you hear that, oh, your kid's doing great, he's a good person, whatever, that there's just that sigh of relief, and you're just like, okay, we're doing the right thing as parents. We're doing a good job. You know?
I think like for the most part, don't you feel like you know it? Like for the most part, like there's some, don't you feel like you kind of know what you're about to walk into? Like if you're looking at the grades and you're doing your job and you're like, yes, of course, there's a mystery, but like I feel like you're gonna roll in. You're not like waiting like a bad job interview. Like what's gonna happen? Like you walk in, you're like, all right, we know how this is gonna shake down, you know. But it's funny because like I feel like no matter what, even if that happens, the first couple seconds you get that nervous energy. You're like, oh god, what are they gonna say?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, like, do you guys like before you get a report card or a teacher parent conference, like what are some of the things you guys do to kind of like throughout the year, throughout the quarter, kind of keep yourselves prepared for like these things? Because like it shouldn't be a mystery when you go into a teacher conference, like a complete mystery. There might be some things you'll learn, but not like so like what are some of the things you guys do? Like, you know.
Well, I feel like, do you guys like look through their homework folders and like kind of like this has been a thing, like almost like I know that my middle guy, he's young, he's in 3rd grade, whatever, but like there's this weird thing where like my mom would sit there with me and like watch me do my homework. So like my middle guy wants to like do the homework, and I know he rushes sometimes, but then my wife had this thought of like, well, if he's sloppy and he goes rushed through it, then he's gonna have to show his teacher, and there's that. But I kind of like feel like I kind of like to dip in sometimes and be like, why don't we write that number over? Because that doesn't look like the number you think it is. So like, there's like, you know, a little bit of that. But I feel like checking in and, you know, just having them explain, even having like your kid explain something that they learned today, like to you, and having them teach you a little bit is like a good indicator, I think, of like what they know, what's going on. But like, I'm curious what you guys have as well. Like, what do you have things in place or like things that you do?
Yeah, so checking in throughout the year is something we definitely do too. And on the actual day, you know, on the actual day of parent-teacher conference, something Taylor and I do is because we have 2 kids in the same school. So, you know, we have staggered times. And there's actually like an hour to an hour and a half gap in between the 2 that we have to see the 2 different teachers, right? So something we do to like prepare ourselves and kind of like soak it all in is we go on a little dinner date, right?
Oh,
and the dinner date is generally Taco Bell, but one year we were feeling a little risque and we decided to go to the Applebees.
Oh, that is risky.
And Taylor's like, no way, we're not going to make it on time, Mike. We have to be there on time. How dare you make me go to Applebees? I'm like, relax.
Yes.
I got this.
Taylor.
We can do the 3-course meal. We're gonna be fine.
Taylor, I'm with you, girl.
Meal,
I'm with you. Cause I'd be nervous
drink,
too.
We're good.
Yeah,
And
we're good. I love it.
Sure enough, I won, and it's fun. Because that little edge, that little fun or that we have takes the edge off the worry and the stress of parent-teacher conferences and the stuff.
That's
so
that is wonderful. I like that.
Yeah.
As Taylor is probably like me sitting there waiting where's the check? We should ask for the check now. The dinner's here. We got all our food now. Ask for the check. Get the check.
I shouldn't be eating a spin dip, but it's so delicious. Applebees. Why?
You think we have time for a blondie?
You go to the parent conference with caramel on your shirt, and you're like, no, nothing to see here.
You're like, no big deal, no big deal. No, I mean, I think definitely now in this day and age, the best thing is those portals. It's a curse and a blessing. You can be the parent that obsesses over it, or you can be the parent that checks in twice a week. Or even daily, but you don't obsess, because you also got to give the teachers grace. They're not always grading things right away, because there's 100 other students who also grade as well, besides your cherub. But I think it's important to look through either your portals or your Google Classrooms. I know with both of my kids, I'm fortunate enough that they don't necessarily withhold information. They basically tell me listen, I got homework. I'm like, how'd the science homework go? I may not hand it in. Really? And make sure you do it tonight. Did you hand it in today? So I think just kind of checking in. That way you don't get surprises. Yeah. Because I hate a surprise. But if you have those honest conversations, I feel with kids in terms of report cards, the parent portal, the Google Classroom, just saying hey, you did, even as simple, I think sometimes, because I don't always check every day. And sometimes I want to say I check every week, but maybe I don't sometimes. But at least if every day we have a conversation of, do you do your homework? Any tests or quizzes coming up? Any projects? Because I also don't want to be a Rite Aid at 12 a.m. trying to find some OTAG or something like that. You got, so that's for a mommy situation, not for them necessarily with the projects. But do you have all the stuff you need? Okay, I feel you just have this open dialogue about homework and tests and quizzes, and don't make it this big horrible thing. I feel they're more forthcoming with that kind of stuff. From my experience, I just feel they're more forthcoming.
I like that, because if it's like my kids have the belief if you we've talked about this, where it's if you get a 90 and you just kind of get it versus you work your butt off and you got an 80, I'd rather that you worked your butt off and got an 80 and you pushed yourself and you worked hard for it. Yeah. And then you just did nothing to get the high. You know what I mean?
Yes.
It's there's the effort that pushes you is a bigger thing. But
exactly.
There's something that also is kind of wild is I feel and I don't know if this is just I told you guys silly stories of me doing homework in the kitchen when my mom cooked and all that. I put myself on them a little bit, what? And I think that with that, I'm you know what? You're not going to do the same nonsense that I did, because I know I learned better in college when I had to pull it together. I don't allow them to have a break. No, I do, but not until they get their homework done. So you work, don't kidding. They get home and then I'm that's it. Wash your hands, grab a snack, grab your homework, because it's happening right now. So they just know, when they come inside the house, you get cleaned up, you get whatever. It's not time to relax. You get your homework done. When that's done, we go through your folders. And then when that's all done and you've made sure you emptied your lunch bag, because I don't want to see that dirty yogurt container from Friday on a Sunday night.
I'm working on that with Julian. Work on it.
With an ice pack that's no longer cold.
Oh, God.
Then I feel good, and I kind of put it on them to go through their folder and show me stuff, because I feel that's a little bit empowering to them.
Yeah.
And then I noticed too that when we go through tests and stuff, if you get a test home, I feel it's so easy to be oh, you got whatever, you got a 22 out of 25, whatever. Where'd you lose the 3 points from? Whatever. That's not a nice thing to say. Let's show me all the great stuff you did first, and then be oh, what happened over here? Not making a big deal over the missed points, because that's silly. But it's easy for that to be misconstrued as something that you're attacking them on when you don't want to be doing that.
Yeah.
And maybe you don't even intend to, but it might come across that way. But I think that's kind of something that's important. And the other thing, it sounds really silly, but it's not always easy, especially when you have kids doing 6,000 activities. I always try to have it where we're eating together, as a family. And if that doesn't work, then one adult is at the table with the kid or kids eating together and having a conversation, because I feel like homework first, having dinner at the table is like super duper big. Like, you know, no TV's on, no nonsense. Like, let's just talk, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think as the kids get older, and maybe you can't necessarily, especially if you have like a wide range of children, I think if you don't do that dinner table, because I love the dinner table. I grew up on the dinner table. We try so desperately to do the dinner table, but you know what? The car ride. That car ride, I actually read an article.
Oh, that's true.
Somewhere I read an article about it's actually best to have those really tough conversations in a car ride, because you're
like
driving,
when you're moving and like
you're
just
driving, you're focused, you're not looking at your child directly, and your child almost like a confessional. They're able to kind of spill their heart. But that's when they get older, you know, like, so like I do that with like, especially with my daughter, because I'm driving her here, there, and everywhere, you know, like
we take the long way home. We got to
no, we do. There have been times we've actually drove around the block a couple of times before we get home, because like we're having a conversation. I'm like, I'm not ready to have this conversation stop. She's like opening up. Let's keep driving, you know? And she likes that. Yeah. And then like with
it's like big man parliament.
Yeah.
Like,
and my little guy, you know, he's still little enough that, you know, like he's doing activities, but maybe not as many things. And we sit down, we chit chat. But like, I think having those open conversations about stuff, school work stuff, teacher stuff, I think that's super important, you know? But like, so... Yeah, I was thinking about you going to dinner, Mr. Levine, not to pick on you and Taylor, having a nice time at Applebee's or Taco Bell, because I do love a number 6 with beef.
Is that a chalupa meal with a taco and stuff?
That is a chalupa supreme with beef and a soft taco.
Yes.
With a Pepsi. Okay.
Cheesy Fiesta potatoes.
Girl, that is good. Okay, so I love it. But like, what do you guys actually get to the conference? Like, what are like some like little pet peeves of the night that you might have? Like for me, it's like you get there on time after maybe you went to Applebee's, and you're sitting there, and you're like, "Gee, Willikers, we're really running behind schedule." Like, you know, and then you're like, "Oh, that's so and so's parents. Of course, they're there for 20 minutes." You know, don't hog up the time, folks. You know, like. And don't spend too long at Applebee's.
Well, they tell you they say like knock on the door.
Yep.
When it's your time, or like they'll have like in middle school. It's very funny because you know, this is our first year in middle school with my son, and they had like some students. They must have been like honor society kids or whatever else from high school, whatever they did, and they were like the monitors. So like they were very serious at the clock, the watch. 5 minutes here, like they would knock on the door and they would do the whole thing. But it's like funny because like you feel like a little awkward knocking the door when someone's in the middle of a meeting. But like we saw some parents rolling there, but like look at their watch, bam, bam, bam.
Oh gosh,
you're on my time now. I was like, oh my gosh,
yeah.
You know, it's crazy, man. I don't know, that drives me crazy though when you're sitting there waiting. But we had this thing with the middle school where I don't know if this was like a problem they had in their system, but it was supposed to be like at 7 a.m. You're supposed to be able to sign up for all of like the slots. So middle school is like a lot of teachers. So it was like you would sign up for a 5-minute slot for your kids' teachers in a 3-hour time span. So like this did not go well. We like it was like all of a sudden 7 o'clock in the morning. What's available? Nothing. Cool. So I got to work early just so I could like you know get the time.
I remember seeing you sweat over this. Yep.
40 minutes go by and then Art shows up. I'm like, this is going splendidly.
Oh,
so then throughout the day,
it was like Ticketmaster. Things were being released.
Yes.
Oh wow.
Yes.
Intense.
Yeah. So everybody's waiting for Dave Matthews tickets.
Oh man.
So anyway, so then I'm sitting there and like all of a sudden they're like 11:30. They're like, oh, social day just opened up. Like, what is going on?
Are you serious?
And then like, yeah, and then you couldn't like abandon a time to pick another time because you're double booked.
Oh
so you had to like drop your time slot to grab a new one. So we're amateurs. We know what's going on. We're trying to leave ourselves time between conferences. We were there for 3 hours with like 40 minutes in between, 20 minutes in between, 30 minutes in between. And we're like, this is ridiculous. We started like bouncing around. We go to the end of the night, see if we could like slide in if somebody wasn't in there yet. And we were like just trying to like compress. But man, what a crazy system. It's different when you meet with like one teacher because your kid has it in elementary school versus like middle school. I'm like, this is probably just 6th grade. And so the parents are like 6th, 7th, and 8th. I was like, oh baby, here we go. But it's a process, man. I don't know. But we found like we're very fortunate that this sounds like a side note, but like I've noticed that especially like, you know, this day and age, like I don't know, we find this with some kids, like there's a lot of this boys will be boys nonsense, which like we do not subscribe to. And my wife and I are kind of like, you know, we noticed that like our older guy, he has like a lot of friends that are girls, and like we're like, yeah, is that normal? Is that good? Whatever, I don't know. And it's fine, like whatever, it is what it is. And he just likes to be around more like calm, like less crazy, hectic kids, whatever. And we've been very fortunate where we've met some like cool parents and stuff, and you know, his friends. So like when you go to these back to school night conferences and you bump into the other parents, it's kind of funny because you're like, hey, what's going on? How long are you in for? Oh man, you serving time here? How was your next conference? 20 minutes. You're like, oh good lordy. And then you see another group of parents are like pros. They just got this. They're like, we're done. We're going to dinner. I'm like, how are you doing this? You know,
exactly.
Right.
It's
very funny.
You're doing the Levine, I guess. You know, getting Applebees in there. I respect it.
Yeah, but
so
he's not
much.
messing around. Listen, Mike Levine, he should have a shirt that says not messing around.
Not messing.
He didn't go after dinner. He didn't go after the conferences. He went in the middle of the conferences.
Snuck it right in there. I
like,
love it.
He's like the icing inside of the Oreo.
No,
like I don't know. That's
because you're ready to get the babysitting. You might as well have some
man.
fun.
Yeah.
I like we did there, but like when you see like your other friends. So like I went to parent teacher conference. I was before a good friend of ours, and I walked out. I was like, "Oh, hey guys!" I'm like, I hope they didn't hear like not like anything was bad being said, but you know, and the door's closed. But it's just like you know, you play like, don't you like also play like the respectful like I didn't just overhear your conversation. It's always an interesting time with the parent teacher conferences, you know.
You know what the awkward thing is? You know when the door opens and you're being ushered in as somebody's leaving, but they're not quite leaving yet. So like you're kind of in this weird, and you have to almost like do this thing where you look anywhere else in the room.
Yep.
Like you could like look at your shoes. You're like, oh, my watch is something very interesting. And then like you're like, when will this end so we can move on with our lives? You know.
See, and then that's when you as the parent, if like there's still more questions that you have, I think the teachers might appreciate, can we follow this up with an email? And I think afterwards, even after you process everything that's been said to you, whether it's good, it's bad, or slightly neutral, like I think if you feel like you still have some more questions or want to clarify things, email and say, hey, can we have a discussion about something you said or something like that? It doesn't have to be bad. Just like, you know, that's within your right, I think, because you're advocating for your kid to say, let's dig a little deeper into something, you know? And not monopolize her time or his time and then the other parent's time, you know?
If you have 5-10 minutes, like let's be honest with the conversation, it's short, right?
Yes. Yep.
So I feel like you could come in and you could be like, you have your one or two questions that you're dying to ask. You have those, you ask those, you know, after they give you the spiel, how they're doing, their report card, this, that, and the other, and then maybe compliment the teacher, something that they're doing that you value, you know, because I think that's also important. They probably like to hear that. Because it's true. You like something that you're doing that you hear your kid doing, like, you want to tell them it's great, tell them, you know, but then like have your couple questions that you want to get the answers to. And then what we try to do too is like, you know, Mr. Clipboard, I have my iPad with me and I like write everything down because I want to like compare. What I want to do is I really want to compare every class to see not really what the teacher's saying, like so much about what they're learning, but like how is my kid in all those classes and is it consistent? Because when it's inconsistent, then I'm like, all right, what's going on here? Are they having trouble in the subject, whatever else? And then, you know, that's always good to kind of like find like the point where like things are a little bit, you know, we have an anomaly here. No, but you know, it's important to find that out. But, you know, like you have your couple questions, you know, and I also find like it's beneficial sometimes to ask the same question in every class because like if you're curious if your kid's participating, ask if your kid's participating in the entire night and see what the other people are saying. And maybe your kid is participating. Maybe they surprise you. And in every class, they're like, yeah, no, they sometimes raise their hand. Or they're a little bashful. Or sometimes if I ask them to, you know, then like it's fine. Like sometimes they're like, you know, they're not the first to raise their hand. But if I ask them a question, they know what's going on. Cool. Good enough. You know what I mean?
Right.
But that's the kind of thing that like, you know, little things as you learn along the way. By the time my kids graduate, I'll be like, I think I have this down. You know what I mean?
Listen, and you'll never truly have it down, you know?
No, never.
But like, what do you think the experts say about all this? You know, like
Ooh, let's see. What do the experts say about this, Sarah D?
I found on Reading Rockets launching your young readers. I found this article that like was just talking about like how to make like a successful parent teacher conference. You know, so I think from our conversations we pretty much hit it all. Like they said, like talk with your child. They said
get your blood sugar in a good spot.
Yes, that way. I was just like lulled into whatever. They said talk to your child and prepare some notes. You know, like if you're really curious about something, about a certain subject area, or they're participating or being a good citizen, they give you a whole bunch of really nice questions to ask, like what they're expected to learn, how they can be evaluated, do they seem to be happy in class? And I think that those are really interesting questions to ask, to get some info, And then I said during the conference, like, be on time. I think that's a big deal, because you want to dominate the teacher's time and like the other parents' time. You
know what I like? You also mentioned like how are they evaluated?
Yeah,
that's important because sometimes important. If for example, let's just say maybe a certain class, if there's only a couple grades for a quarter,
yep.
And maybe let's just say it's like a group project, and that's how they're being graded, and your kid, and you're like, it's like, I don't know really what you say in that situation. You could be like, are there going to be other grading opportunities for next quarter? Maybe the group project didn't do so great on, nudge, nudge, wink, wink.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Sometimes you want more grades or just to know how are they going to be graded. I think that's a great point, Sarah.
Yeah, I think so too. And also my son, he didn't realize sometimes he was being evaluated on something and he didn't do so well because he thought it was a big joke. But that's Julian too. He thinks everything's a joke,
I don't know how to spell anymore.
Yeah. Also, he doesn't know how to read all the sight words. I'm like, really, dude? But they say be yourself, relax a little bit. That's the one I probably have to work on the most is relaxing, stay calm.
That's the one that my wife gets nervous about when I do that.
Yep. Yeah. And the same calm.
Don't be yourself.
Again, staying calm too. Because again, my knee jerk reaction sometimes to be defend, but then I'm like, calm down. Asking for explanations, questions, and talk. Creating action plans. I think is a big deal. It's my teacher this year actually gave some feedback for Julian. She was wonderful. She gave me worksheets and things to kind of look at and literature to read to help him. So okay, I got an action plan. She made one for me. That's amazing, and if your teacher doesn't do that, then you could say, when you get a chance, can you give me some resources to help me out with this? Because, if you're not the teacher or the literacy teacher, you might need some help, there's nothing wrong with that. And then they say after the conference, to talk to your child, actually try to follow through the action plan. Listen, that following through is so hard. I'll be honest, sometimes I don't always follow through it. It's more work for you, And then they say to keep in touch with the teacher. It's the most important thing too,
Well, it's funny because you guys probably experienced this too. I like what the article said about that is it doesn't even matter if you get home late because your kids are awake. When you go to the back to school, I usually wake them up, or they're not asleep. We usually go to the room and talk to them do you want to hear what your teachers had to say?
Yep.
And then they're like, yes. And then and it's usually some good stuff, and they get very excited. And I think it actually, even if there's some stuff for them to work on, which I like when there is stuff for them to focus on, work on. I think they get really motivated when they hear something nice from a teacher because they don't always know where they stand.
Yeah.
When Julian's I like the teacher, and Monday's I don't like the teacher anymore. Whatever else. I feel when they hear something positive and the teacher's no, they're so creative, they're really smart, they're a great contributor to the conversations.
Yep.
I wish they would trust their instincts a little bit more. You tell them that, and all of a sudden you see this big grin on their face. And you're that's awesome, because as much as you tell them stuff mommy and daddy think you're special, and it sounds like a special snowflake. Then it doesn't matter what you tell them. Sometimes even if you tell them truthfully, you're a good writer, you're very creative, you can work on this. Sometimes even the positive they just brush off because oh, you're just my parents,
Yeah.
But when they hear an outside party say something the teacher that's meaningful, all of a sudden it doesn't matter about the criticism because they hear something positive, and I think it really puts a little swing in their step.
And parents, I think for teens, that also works because that relates totally to my daughter. Social studies, the teachers seem mean, quote unquote. She seemed tough, to be honest with you, back to school night. I was like, oh, wow, this is a tough course. My daughter's complaining about it. And I'm like, okay, that's fitting the narrative I made in my head already. And then we get the parent-teacher conference, and she's saying all these wonderful things about her. And I'm like, oh, my God, okay. And then she doesn't seem so terrible as she felt like in the beginning. And I tell my daughter this, and I have to say her grades have gone up then after that. After I gave her that feedback of saying, she's seeing this in you. She thinks you have some nice things to say. Don't leave points on the table. And so my daughter was like, all right, cool. And I think she changed her mind. The narrative that she had in her head, I had in my head about this teacher, and things have been positive. Is she straight A's? No. But I think there's more effort put into it, you know? And that's the most important thing.
That's why it's nice when it's earlier in the year, because then it's like you could impact them, you know, soonish.
Yeah.
Before things get a little like too deep, you know, into the year. That's awesome. I love that to hear that, like, you know, the motivating factor of it, because like I feel that way too. Like I want them to see that.
Yep.
Like, you know how it is. Like there's some conversations like your kids are they don't need to be a part. They don't need to be part of. Like
Yes,
I'm not the kind of parent like the kids must know everything, whether it's appropriate or not. Like no, we're not like that.
No.
But like something like that, like here's feedback and you're going to hear it now. You know what I mean? And that's a good thing.
Yep.
That's a cool article. I dig that. I feel like I always feel like I like try to hear the things I'm not doing right, but I do like to hear the things I do right in an article.
Yes,
I'm like, that is good.
It is validating.
You're not all terrible. Yes. Well, I don't know about you guys, but we're kicking that clock into full gear. Mike Levine is reaching his arms back. He's going to fall asleep.
Yep.
So we are going to jump right in to our special part of the show where we are going to talk about our Parenting Unplugged. But before we do that, we'd love to hear from you. Maybe you have some experiences about back to school night, parent conferences, report cards, your daughters ripping up their report cards and hiding them from you. But if you have a topic, a crazy idea, a parenting story, a fail, or something you experienced that you want to share with us, you can always contact us here on the show. Tell us about a birthday for your kiddo, an anniversary. You know, you had Taco Bell one night. We'd love to talk about it. You can leave us a message on our Hey Other Parents voicemail line at 559-537-5437. Why bother? 559-375-KIDS or 557-LAY-KIDS if you're feeling French and fancy. You can also email the show at heyotherparents@gmail.com. Keep it short, keep it weird, and we most likely read it on the show. We already have some emails brewing that we're going to either save for a mailbag episode, or we're going to relate it to a topic that we have. And you can join us on Instagram. Do it for the Insta at Hey Other Parents, and that's where we are. We'll keep you up to date with all of our weird, creepy, bizarre AI creations, because if they're not entertaining you, believe you me, they're entertaining us. So we look forward to all of that feedback from you and sharing our parenting adventures with you, because we are not alone. You have adventures, we have adventures, and we will cry on each other's shoulders. So we are back for Parenting Unplugged. Time to unplug. It is that time where we realize that we will be better if we take care of me. So, Sarah D., talk to me. What do you got this week?
Oh, my gosh. So my work mom, Helene, she has been recommending all these audiobooks to me. And one of the recommendations have been The Gunkle by Stephen Rowley. And he also performs it as well. Amazing. This book is everything. It's like, it has so much heart to it. It talks about grief. It talks about being out of your comfort zone, LGBTQIA topics. It talks about, it's just so warm. It's so endearing. At the end, I definitely teared up because there are just so many like words, sentences, thoughts that are just, they touch your heart. I mean, if you don't like audiobooks, like this is the one audiobook that you have to listen to, The Gunkle. I really loved it. You know, it was a good time. You have to read it. It should be a movie. I already picture in my head the movie. I've casted everyone in my head. So.
That's a good sign when you're like, I could picture this in my head as like on Netflix or whatever. Like you see it and you're like, all right, characters, we got this. That's awesome. I may have to check this one out. You see the audiobook is the way to go?
Yes, audiobook. For it.
I'll burn a credit.
Loving it.
Mike Levine, what do you got, buddy?
See, like Sarah, well, or unlike Sarah, she has the book that gets her all those feels. You know what gets me all those feels? A nice brownie sundae.
Oh, all right. Now we're talking.
Now we're talking. Okay.
You know, I just, when you have those crazy work weeks and, you just want to splurge a little on dessert. One of my favorite desserts are from, believe it or not, Outback Steakhouse. I don't know what they do or how they make their brownie or why it's so good, but I think it's the best brownie sundae in the world.
Would that happen to be the Chocolate Thunder from Down Under?
That's it, the Chocolate Thunder from Down Under. I got one of those, and the prices have significantly gone up on this little dessert, but it is worth it. And, it just, when you're having a bad day and you want something good, there's nothing like a brownie sundae. So,
you know what's funny about that
treat
is
yourself.
Yeah, definitely treat yourself. I always feel like if I go to Outback, I'm like, my brain is wrapped around two things. And it's not the steak, but I do want the steak. It is the bloomin' onion.
Oh, I was gonna
And
say
it
we
is,
should do that
fries.
thing like where like you like said like the thing like at the same time because mine was blooming onion.
Oh, right,
too.
we're like bloomin' onion.
Bloomin' onion.
Yeah, exactly. But the thing is like when you choose that path, you don't always have room for dessert because like I kind of have this mentality like it's appetizer or dessert because I usually like hit the main meal pretty heavy. So like it's like I'm not like, oh, I'm watching my figure. I'm like I am stuffing myself on steak and sides. That potato is going down the gullet.
Yep.
But like if I do the appetizer, I don't usually save room for dessert. But you have me intrigued, Mr. Levine, because the chocolate thunder from down under. I only remember that because it rhymes and it's funny. But that sounds kind of nice.
With a blooming onion. Yeah, salty sweet.
What about you? What about you, Mike? What was your unplug this week, man?
I don't know. I just didn't. Let me give me like 5 more seconds to think about the bloomin' onion. All right, I'm good now.
Okay.
So this week, I did finally. Okay, so all over the internet, I've been seeing postings about Scott Pilgrim. So Scott Pilgrim is a killer. It's a killer movie. It's a movie with Michael Sara. We loved him in Arrested Development. It's got a bunch of other people in it. And it's got the dude from Rushmore. They have names, I guess. But anyway, so we saw the movie years ago, and I always thought the movie was kind of cool. I knew that it was like based on a graphic novel, and the graphic novel has like, it's got like, you know, the anime kind of mixture with like video games that ties into like well, it's not teenager, I guess they're like older, but like, you know, like early 20-somethings, like romance and stuff like that. It's not a kid's thing whatsoever, but Scott Pilgrim, the movie, it's a pretty decent adaptation of like what was going on. It's a cool story. So I was reading that the Scott Pilgrim show that came on Netflix about a month ago, that it has people divided because it took the plot and it threw the plot on its belly. And is that what it does? It throws on its belly? I don't know. It changed the plot. It threw it upside down and it went in a different direction. And people weren't happy about it. And I don't know if people watched it until the end, but I really like what they did with it. And they actually hired all of the actors that were in the movie to play the characters in this cartoon series, the same characters in the series. And the series is, I think it's like 6 or 8 episodes. They're like 30 minutes. And they're definitely not for kids, but they're really good. It's a romance story of this guy, Scott Pilgrim, who falls in love with this girl from out of town. And when he likes her and they go on a date, he finds out that in order to be with her, he has to fight her deadly 6 ex-boyfriends. And the whole story is like, you know, anime battling with him fighting her evil exes, and they form like an evil league where they must fight Scott Pilgrim because she can't be happy if she's not with them. It sounds like an insane story, only because it is an insane story. But it's cool. I really liked it, and because they changed the story around so much, it made it for a very interesting watch. And they make you honestly feel like it's going exactly carbon copy of the movie. And then you get to the end of the first episode, and you're like, "Whoop, that's not how that ended."
That's a twist.
And it's cool. It's really good. The music's good. The actors are funny. It's cool. I would say if you saw the movie and you dug it, definitely check this one out. If you didn't, movie's probably good to watch first. But that was my jam. I really enjoyed it.
Man.
Yeah, Babam was the name of the band. Love Babam. What were they called? I don't remember anyway. So, my friends, it feels like we were knee deep in report card land. In parent conferences, in grades, and talking to our kiddos about pushing themselves and how maybe their teachers like them more than they realize. But for us, it's time for us to not only tuck in our kids are asleep, but it's now to tuck in ourselves because it's getting late. So I think that's going to do it for this week. If you have time, we would greatly appreciate you leaving us a review on the Apple Podcast app. Search for the show, scroll down to find ratings and reviews, throw some stars, comment on Mike's excellent choices in food, Sarah's good choices in Taco Bell, and my ridiculous choices when it comes to bloomin' onions, because appetizer before dessert, baby. So I think we'd like to take a moment to thank our listeners, our tip jar supporters for donating to the show. If you want to support the show to allow us to keep making episodes like this and affording our Taco Bell, we do have a tip jar set up using our Stripe listed in the show notes, very similar to Venmo. That gives you access to bonus episodes each month. We can't wait to explore this parenting thing again next week on Hey Other Parents, because it is the 3 of us and all of you. Don't forget to hug your kids and charge your Chromebooks. That's going to do it for me. For Mike and for Sarah, we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Peace.
Peace.
Hey Other Parents is produced by Mike Levine, Sarah Deserbeans, and me, Michael Height. I edit and mix our show. Our intro voice recording was done by the one and only Coltrane. If you like our show, we hope you will consider going to our show notes and supporting us through our Stripe tip jar. Consider becoming a member. Doing so supports us and gives you access to an exclusive Hey Other Parents episode each month to hear us more. Find us online and on Twitter and Instagram at Hey Other Parents, or send us an email at heyotherparents@gmail.com. Thank you for listening, and we will see you next time.
Buenas noches.